Hi! Welcome to Storytime, where we compare a book and a movie. Yay! This is Christy Grace Scarlet Pen. I have been doing this for a while now. I haven't done one for a while now, but I have read a book and compared it to the film that was made based off of this book. And as you can tell from the title, is Bullet Train. So yeah, I picked up the book after it had become a movie. And so my cover is the movie cover, unfortunately. Now, I'm just gonna get this all wrong. Kitaro Isaka is the author. I think it was originally written in Japanese, I think, and then it was translated into English. Sam Malasa. Anyway, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I have just finished the film, and I have read the book. So let's do the thing where we compare and contrast. This is going to be a video with spoilers. It just is. We're gonna have to talk about the differences and all that kind of spoilers. Okay, there's spoilers in this. If you haven't seen the movie or read the book and you wanted to do one or both, do that and pause the video, do that, come back, whatever. Because there are going to be spoilers. We're doing that today. All right, I have notes. So many notes about this book. So here's the deal. Broad strokes. This is what the story's about. There are several characters all on a bullet train in Japan. I was gonna say Tokyo, but I think that's one of the stop. Is that the stop? That stop? It doesn't matter. There are a bunch of different people who are on a bullet train in Japan. You know, there's lots of stuff happening. People are being rescued from kidnaps. There is a bag that everybody wants to get their hands on. There are pretty much everyone being an assassin of some sort in the biz, I suppose, if you want to call it that. There's lots going on, okay? Like, I don't even know how you would explain this to somebody without it being an instant spoiler, but basically a train with murders happening and just so much chaos, it's unbelievable. So that's the sort of broad strokes of it. So there are a couple of main characters we follow in this story. And I think probably the best way to explain this is just to tell you the spoiler version of the story. So basically, all the characters are assassins of some sort or another. They're all bad guys who kill people and manipulate and whatever. And they are all somehow end up being interlinked throughout this train journey. And pretty much, you know, kill each other. We have multiple characters that we follow. I'm going to call them I don't want to butcher names, so I'm actually going to call them, you know, the names they're known as. So you have, in the book, let's start with the book because that was the story that was the longest, I guess. Rather than a 2-hour movie, it is like a very long book, an enjoyable book, I should say. I liked the book. The movie was good, but for different reasons. Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. But in the book, you follow sort of your main characters. You have the prince, who is a teenage boy who is a sadistic SOB. My goodness, he's very manipulative. Teenage boy knows how to pretend that he is, you know, an innocent person, but really he's a pro-manipulative psychopath. Like, pro. His story was fascinating. His POV was fascinating to follow. Then you have the father, who is a guy who went onto the train originally to try and kill the prince because the prince pushed his 6-year-old son off of a building, right? And this kid is Wataru, so cute. Well, in the flashbacks he was cute, but he is death's door in a coma. And the father went onto this train to try and kill the prince. However, the prince led him onto this train and is trying to manipulate him. He has someone at the hospital who is, if they don't hear from them on the phone, will kill the little kid. And so they are stuck in this sort of relationship while we're on this train. He desperately wants to kill the guy who is responsible for his son being in a coma and potentially dying, and the prince just wants to try and manipulate this guy into doing something else, which I think is killing the big bad in this book. The big bad in this book is a crime boss. I can't actually remember his name, but a really big crime boss who everyone is terrified of and is just crazy. So that is one dynamic that you have happening. You also have Tangerine and Lemon, who are twin partners, so they look alike, but they aren't actually related. They just work together as a team in the biz. And they have rescued the big bad's son, who was kidnapped, and they brought ransom money in a suitcase, a black suitcase, but never intended to give it. They just killed 16, 17 people and got the kid back. And they are on the train trying to bring him back to his dad. Unfortunately, at the very beginning, this kid ends up being killed on this train. They have no idea why, and the briefcase is stolen by our next person we follow, and it is the ladybug. He's funny. He's kind of like Murphy's Law bad luck. Like, whatever could possibly, like, all of the things go wrong. He has the worst luck in the world, if you believe in luck, and just all of the terrible things happen to him. However, he is in the biz because he's actually very good when he's in a bad situation at being so singularly focused and just manages to just wriggle his way out of literally everything. He works with a woman called Maria who sets up his jobs for him. He calls her on and off throughout the train ride and informs her of what's going on and sort of what's happening and gets some information from her along the way. But he ends up stealing the briefcase. That was the job he was hired to do while on the train. I called it a briefcase because that's what they do in the movie, but it's suitcase in the book. There's a bit of a difference that they had. Basically, this case has lots of money in it, so everyone wants it. Everyone sort of realizes what it is throughout the story on the train. And then we also have thrown into the mix, we have the Hornet, which is a which is another assassin. Oh my gosh. On the train, there is also another person, Suzuki, who, I think that's his name, who's basically just randomly there. But he ends up, I don't know why I mentioned him because he's a relatively minor character. Then you also have the final sort of set of other main characters, I guess. Well, not really, but towards the end. And that is the parents of the father who's dealing with the prince. And they both come onto the train at the end to sort of have that finale situation happen. So basically, the upshot of this book is pretty much almost everyone dies. The only person really who survives is the dad of the little kid and his parents. And then also the ladybug, who is just the most unlucky assassin, well, unlucky person in the business. He doesn't really like to do those types of jobs, but just ends up just getting hired for more simple things, but it always ends up going wrong. Sort of just describing a lot of the main characters ends up, you know, giving away a lot of the basic plot anyway, because in order to explain this, you've got to explain that, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, there are bits and pieces of the plot I won't share, so, like, it'll be a surprise, but the important thing is to be able to compare and contrast. So, that is the spoiler version of this sort of what happens in the story. Well, the bare bones of the story anyway. There's lots of other things going on, but it was an interesting ride, I will say. So, here's what I've noticed. The book was intricately and beautifully woven. It took its time with a lot of the characters and a lot of the instances. Like, there was fights on the train that are happening between these killers who are all trying to backstab each other and, you know, figure out what the best move is to try and survive and all that kind of stuff. And so you have a lot of this intricate stuff going on, like they're thinking about things and figuring things out in their own minds and figuring out what they're going to do and whatever. Like, you have someone like the ladybug who starts freaking out. He's like unlucky, bad things happen all the time, and then all of a sudden, okay, singular focus, now I can actually just act almost without even thinking about it, so fast, so, like, you know, figure it all out, you know, instantaneously. And so that was really interesting. You have characters like Lemon with Lemon and Tangerine, who just loves Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends and will just not shut up about Thomas the Tank Engine the whole book. I loved that about Lemon. He was so funny in that regard. Pretty brutal killer though when it came down to it. He was a little bit silly and a little bit, like, you know, not as clever as someone like Tangerine or, you know, the Prince, but still interesting. But what I noticed about, the book was, it was just beautifully written. It was woven really well. The characters took their time. We got to know them relatively well before, you know, everyone started dying. We had enough, you know, context to I really liked Lemon. It was actually done in such a way that I didn't mind. Like, I've read books where I'm like, everybody died, but it felt like a plot device, and it was like, really? That was so ridiculous. What was the point of that? Like, why did we do that? Why did we get to know these characters and you just kill them all off? And it was annoying. This one made total sense. They're all assassins, all on the train, all trying to kill each other and get the upper hand. Of course everyone is going to kill each other. That makes logical sense for the story. So I didn't mind that almost everybody dies. I liked that. So it was really, really nicely written and really well done. The fight sequences, like we're on a train. There's other people around, like limited people, but there's other people around. You can't just go shooting everybody or like having violent, bloody messes. You know, you have to be smart about it. There's people that, you know, we're snapping necks and we're doing things that are a little bit less conspicuous. We're having fights that are, you know, a little bit more muted and we're trying to not draw too much attention to ourselves. We have a silencer on board, so that makes things a little easier. There's a snake. There's a lot of things going on, but the way that it was written and the way that it was described, it wasn't too violent, it wasn't too gory, it was just, you know, it was really interesting. It was more so about the characters and how we're getting to the point, and less so about, let's just throw in all of the violent action sequences that we can. Having said that, the movie was another thing altogether. So the movie did a lot of different things, but on the whole, if I was going to describe it, which is what I was trying to do with the book, it was a very Americified version of this story. Okay, I wrote this down, okay? So there was a lot more gore, so unnecessarily, like, so unnecessary. Like, the gore in this movie was off, like, why? Unnecessary, babe. Like, who are the people that just thinks that everyone in Japan uses swords? Like, what is that? All of the characters in the original book were Japanese, but nobody used a sword. And yet, in the movie, we had swords all over the place. Everything is so gory and violent and unbelievable. They changed a lot of the fighting sequences for no apparent reason that I could notice. It was clunky. The story was so clunky. Like, I actually think that this would have been a lot better if you'd done it as a mini-series and you sort of killed one person per episode. And so then you got a better chance to sort of really sit with the characters and get to know them and go through the story with all the characters. It would have been better, I think, to do it in that way. But there was way more cursing in the movie than there was in the book. Book had maybe like 3 curse words the whole thing. This movie just had it all the way through. And then there was a random therapist thrown into the mix. No, nobody has a therapist. Don't be ridiculous. Really Americified this thing. It went from being intricate and beautiful to like clunky and overly gory and unnecessarily, like, no. So that was one thing that I noticed about, like, just if core themes, I guess, in terms of how it was written. It just, polar opposites. One really huge change that the movie did was it changed one of the characters' gender. Like, it changed the prince from a boy, prince, to a girl that was just called the prince, even though she was a girl. And as much as the actress who did that did a good job, you know, good job, babe. But changing it to a girl felt unnecessary. I'm like, why did you do that? It was just an Amerification. I will say, Brad Pitt as Ladybird was hilarious. He was hilarious. He did such a good job at being the now. He did really well. I really enjoyed him in that role. I will say that. There was way too many people randomly on the train in the movie. I don't know why the movie decided briefcase rather than suitcase. It didn't make, like, a lot of these changes that I noticed were like, why did you change that? It was unnecessary. I don't know why you decided to change that. It's inconsequential change. Why did you do it? Like, if you're going to change stuff, at least have it matter. For example, the ending. Totally different. Look, the movie went with an ending that I thought was the actual ending in the book, but the book twisted it and surprised me, and I actually liked that ending much better. The movie was like, oh, that's what I thought the ending was going to be in the book, but it wasn't. But then, of course, the movie had a runaway train, nowhere even close to that in the book. It seemed like another excuse to have a big, violent, you know, amazingly action sequence where they blow up a train. Well, not blow up, but, like, you know, they crash a train. There was, like, an excuse to do that. It was unnecessary. A lot of these changes were unnecessary. I'm not even going to go through all the differences and the changes. Like, we had so many, like, there were... Okay, look. This book takes place in Japan. Like, the characters, most if not all, Japanese. But this movie, everybody was different race. Like, you had black people, you had white people, you had a Hispanic guy thrown in the mix, which was a character that actually was such a short sequence. Anyway, whatever. You just had people just all over the joint, which were all different. Whatever, it doesn't matter. There was an odd connection with the story with the father and grandfather with the little boy. In the movie, they made the connection to the big bad, who was actually a white Russian in the movie. Why? Why did we have a white Russian as the bad guy rather than just having the big bad as someone from Japan? Whatever. I don't know. You guys change it all you like. Whatever. Who cares? But there was a huge connection with them. Whereas in the book there wasn't. The father character really was an alcoholic, and that was a huge part of his character in the book. Didn't hear anything about that really in the movie, except for him bumping into an alcohol cart, which seemed like a wink to the character in the book. Nothing like that in the story. There was a personal connection with the father and with the prince. There was a personal connection that wasn't in the movie, but it was in the book. He basically caught the prince being a bit of a meanie, and when I say a bit of a meanie, I mean a manipulative prick. When I tell you that the prince in the book was so much worse than the character in the movie, I'm not even kidding. He was going to taser a dog in front of its owner just to try and manipulate this person into feeling hopeless. Like, when I say psychopath, I mean psychopath. Like, this prince guy, no, absolutely not. The chick in the movie, like, as much as the actress is fine, it's just the character was just was such a formidable person. The way also that character got taken out, the book was a bit more savage, but like it felt more deserved in the book. The ending for that character, for the prince character, got a better ending. Like, by the end of this book, the prince is like one of the... Okay, so you have the ladybug who is so unlucky. You have the prince who is super, super lucky for some reason, even though he's an absolute psychopathic dickhead. But his ending, I was so much more satisfied, because by the end of this book, by the end of this story, I just really hated the prince so much. So freaking much. Like, just die already. Like, why is nobody killing this kid? But obviously, you know, part of the story or whatever. He was a really fascinating person to be in the head of, but... The ending in the movie was just like, oh, okay, well, okay. But also, she wasn't as interesting. They took out a couple of the minor characters. Didn't matter, really. I mean, who cares? No big deal. Also, I will say the way that the big bad was taken down was very different in the book and the movie. Yeah, I just feel like some of the changes didn't make any sense. I'm like, why did you bother? Like, why? Why change big black suitcase into a briefcase? Like, that is inconsequential. Why change the way that a fight went down, that, you know, someone gets stabbed rather than their neck broken? Why? Like, was it just an excuse to have more violence and gore and yucky? Like, the sirens agree with me. Because you have to shorten a book down for a 2-hour movie, particularly one that was very long and intricate, you're always going to miss out on some things, but also... I don't know, I feel like they changed things just for the sake of it. Like, why? Why? If you're going to do it based on a book, why don't you just stick with the book? And if you don't care about certain things, you know, take them out altogether. Don't just change the way a fight happened or the connections that some of the characters have. The ending, change the entire ending. Why? Why bother doing it based on the book when it's not even going to be the same? Anyway... Some parts of the movie were good. Like I said, Brad Pitt was hilarious. Some of the way that it was shot, cinematography was pretty good. The violent gore was unnecessary and gross. Yuck, didn't even warn you. Whatever. I don't know. I really liked the book. The movie was only okay. So there you go. Book versus movie. Read the book. I would say to read the book. If you had liked the movie, the book is so much better. Read it. I would suggest to read it. I kind of wish my cover was not the movie cover poster because I didn't really enjoy the movie. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm going to keep it because I actually quite liked it. You know, you know the movie Killers with Katherine Heigl and Ashton Kutcher in it? And they're like basically everybody they knew was assassins and they're trying to... It kind of gives that vibes, but like just more beautifully done. And then America came along and clunked it up. I don't even know who wrote it or like directed, produced, you know, and like whatever. Maybe it wasn't Americified. Maybe it was just written differently. I don't know. But it just felt very American. Like the version was just so American. I was like, okay. It lost something in the translation. Let me say that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Go check out my other book versus movies. I've done so very many. I've done like lots of different kinds as well, not just a book like this or a story like this, loads of different ones. A lot of popular ones, Devil Wears Prada, Blade Runner, the only two things I can think of right now. I still have one more book, I think, in my bookcase that I still have, that I'm trying to do a book versus movie, but so far the book hasn't really gripped my attention very hard, so maybe I'll try and do that tomorrow. But anyways, thank you for watching. You know, I'll see you in the next book versus movie, I guess. I do these less and less, so we'll see. But see you in the adventures.